Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something most people get wrong. When a man goes silent, it doesn't always mean he's moved on. In fact, silence can be the loudest confession of all. Because if he was truly over you, he wouldn't need to hide, he wouldn't need to hold back, and he certainly wouldn't need to fight his own emotions in the dark. His quiet is not indifference, it's obsession disguised as strength. And the moment you understand that, you'll stop fearing the silence and start seeing it for what it really is. Proof that you still have a hold on him far deeper than his words will ever admit. Silence can be one of the loudest messages a person ever sends. When a man goes quiet, the instinct is to panic, to overanalyze, to assume that his distance means disinterest, that his lack of words means a lack of feeling. But let me tell you something that flips the script. Silence doesn't always mean he has stopped thinking about you. In fact, more often than not, silence can be the most telling sign that he is still utterly consumed by you. Because when someone is truly indifferent, they move on easily. They don't wrestle with their emotions, they don't hide behind a wall of quiet, and they don't fight battles in their own mind. Silence isn't the absence of obsession, it is sometimes the evidence of it. When a man is obsessed, he doesn't always express it in grand gestures or constant communication. He obsesses in the moments you can't see. He obsesses when he scrolls back through old conversations, when he remembers your laugh in the middle of the night, when a song plays that he pretends doesn't affect him, but secretly it takes him right back to you. Silence is his way of protecting his pride, his defense mechanism against showing too much vulnerability. He fears that if he reaches out, you'll see just how much control you still have over his heart. And so he hides. He hides behind not texting, not calling, not saying a word. But make no mistake, his silence is not peace. It is noise he's trying to mute. Think about it. If you were nothing to him, would he need to stay silent? Indifference doesn't need silence. It needs nothing at all. Silence, on the other hand, is effort. It is him trying to appear strong, trying to convince himself and maybe even you that he's over it, when in reality the exact opposite is true. His mind is on fire with thoughts of you. He plays scenarios of bumping into you, of what he would say if you spoke again, of how he could win back your attention without admitting he misses you. Silence is not freedom. It is captivity in disguise. There's something magnetic about silence too. It creates tension. It creates space where your own doubts try to creep in, where you begin to second guess whether he ever cared. But remember this, when a man withdraws, it isn't always to escape, it's often to cope. He might feel overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings. He might feel powerless in your presence because you make him feel something he can't easily control. Silence is his way of regaining balance, of trying to protect himself from the storm that you've stirred inside of him. And here's the thing about obsession, it doesn't switch off just because someone tries to go quiet. You can't silence chemistry. You can't silence the memory of someone who lit you up in a way no one else ever has. You can't silence the way your image sneaks into his head at the most inconvenient times. That's why silence is such a false mask. It pretends to be detachment when it's really distraction. He's trying to distract himself, but the harder he tries, the more you invade his thoughts. Have you ever noticed how silence makes people slip up? He might stay quiet for weeks, but then suddenly he likes something on your social media. Suddenly he replies to a story. Suddenly he shows up somewhere he knows you might be. That's not coincidence. That's obsession leaking through the cracks. He can't maintain the mask forever because real feelings demand to be felt. They demand an outlet. Silence is just the pause before the inevitable break. Now, this is where most people make the mistake. They take his silence as a signal to chase. They assume that if he's not reaching out, he must be slipping away. And so they fill the silence with desperate energy, with messages, with calls, with attempts to pull him back. But understand this, silence is his problem to solve, not yours. His obsession isn't your responsibility to ease. If he's consumed by you, let him sit in it. Let him feel the weight of your absence. Let him wrestle with the fact that his silence doesn't make you disappear. Because the more he sits with it, the more he realizes that his silence only amplifies his feelings. It doesn't erase them. There's a power in not reacting to silence. When you don't chase, when you don't beg for answers, you show strength that he doesn't expect. He might have gone quiet to regain control, but what he finds is that you are unshaken, and that only fuels his obsession further. Because obsession thrives on mystery. It thrives on the space you give it to grow. The less you explain yourself, the more he questions himself. The less you seek him out, the more he seeks reasons for why he can't stop thinking about you. Silence may have been his weapon, but your composure turns it into your advantage. Deep down, he knows why he's silent. He's silent because you matter. He's silent because words would expose him. He's silent because every time he drafts a message, he fears it won't come out right, or worse, that you won't respond. He's silent because pride is wrestling with passion, and pride hates to lose. But passion doesn't go away just because it's hidden. It simmers, it burns, it grows in intensity the longer it's denied. That's why silence is deceptive. It looks calm on the surface, but underneath it's a storm. So don't be fooled by his silence. Don't fall into the trap of believing it means you've been forgotten. Silence is not forgetfulness, it's fixation. It's the echo of your presence in his life that he can't switch off. It's the proof that you're still the standard he measures others against, still the ghost in the room when he tries to move on. Silence is not his escape, it's his prison. And in that prison, you're the one on his mind every single day. When you understand this, you stop giving silence more power than it deserves. You stop interpreting it as rejection, and you start seeing it for what it really is, proof. Proof that you've left an imprint too deep to erase. Proof that no amount of silence can undo the connection he feels. Proof that obsession doesn't need words. It reveals itself, even when he's trying hardest to hide it. So the next time you're met with silence, don't let it shake you. Don't let it make you question your worth or your impact. Recognize it for what it is, a loud declaration disguised as quiet. Because silence, in its own twisted way, is still a conversation. It's his unspoken admission that he's still obsessed, still haunted, still yours in ways he can't admit out loud. And that silence, rather than diminishing you, only proves the power you hold. And here's the fascinating part. Silence doesn't just affect him, it affects you too. It makes you question yourself, question what's really going on, question whether his absence is a rejection or a message. But you have to see that this questioning isn't about you being unworthy, it's about him being unable to deal with what he feels. His silence isn't saying you're not enough, it's saying you're too much for him to process in this moment. That's the real meaning behind it. You stir up emotions in him that don't fit neatly into his controlled world. And instead of admitting that, he retreats into quiet, hoping that distance will make it easier. But distance never makes true feelings fade. It just makes them sharper. When someone tries to run from their emotions, they end up tripping over them everywhere they go. He can try to fill his days with distractions, bury himself in work, keep himself surrounded by people. But then there are the moments he can't run from. The drive home alone when the world goes quiet. The shower where thoughts creep in uninvited. The nights lying awake where sleep refuses to come because the mind keeps looping back to you. Silence becomes torture for him because it is in silence that obsession grows the loudest. This is why his silence is not something you need to break. You don't need to force him to talk. You don't need to rush in and solve the riddle. The more you leave that space alone, the more he fills it with his own thoughts of you. That's the irony. His silence was meant to create distance, but instead it keeps him tethered to you even tighter, because it is in that silence that you take root in his mind. You might think silence is a sign of strength, but really it's often weakness disguised. Strength is being able to confront feelings, to express them honestly, to risk vulnerability. Weakness is hiding behind the shield of not saying anything, pretending that indifference is easier than honesty. His silence is not the mark of someone who doesn't care. It's the mark of someone too scared to let you see how deeply he does. He believes silence protects him, but it actually exposes him, because if you didn't matter, he wouldn't need to guard himself so fiercely. There is something intoxicating about the mystery of silence. It creates an energy that keeps him locked into you. Every time he resists the urge to reach out, it only intensifies the desire. Every time he holds back from calling, the need builds. It's like holding a spring compressed. Eventually it has to release. He can go quiet for days, weeks, even months. But inside him, the obsess. Ion doesn't die. It waits, it lingers, it stores energy until one day it spills out in ways he didn't plan. A message sent late at night, a sudden like on something old, a chance encounter that feels anything but chance. Silence always cracks when emotions are real. But here's where you hold the power. Silence doesn't have to control you. You don't need to sit by your phone waiting, overanalyzing, reading into every pause. The more you fixate on his silence, the more you let his struggle dictate your peace. But when you rise above it, when you refuse to let his quiet become your cage, you reclaim all of your power. Because while he's trapped in silence, you're free to move forward, free to thrive, free to live boldly without needing his words as validation. And that is the most magnetic energy you can carry, the energy of someone who isn't shaken by silence, but strengthened by it. Because let's be real, silence says more about him than it does about you. It reveals the battlefield in his own mind. It reveals that you've left an imprint on him so deep he doesn't know how to handle it. It reveals that no matter how hard he tries to mute the connection, it keeps playing in the background like a song stuck on repeat. He may think he's being clever by withholding, but all he's really doing is showing how much you matter. Now think about how obsession works. It's not always about constant action. Sometimes it's about the inability to let go, the way someone's thoughts circle back, no matter how far they wander. That's exactly what silence does. It creates space where his thoughts are free to roam, and guess where they land? Back on you, again and again. Silence isn't the absence of your presence, it's the amplification of it. This is why silence is not something to fear, but something to understand. It's not a verdict. It's not closure. It's not the final word. It's a P. Hayes, in his process of trying to manage emotions he can't manage. And while he's stuck trying to control the uncontrollable, you become even more powerful because you don't need his words to validate your impact. You already know the effect you've had. And here's another truth. Silence is often a strategy. Sometimes he goes quiet not because he's over you, but because he's hoping you'll break first. He wants you to be the one to reach out, to prove that you still care, to give him the reassurance he craves without him having to admit vulnerability. But the more you resist that game, the more the silence turns against him. The longer you hold your ground, the heavier it weighs on him, until he can't hold it any longer. That's why silence isn't victory for him. It's a ticking clock. You see, obsession isn't just about passion, it's about power. And silence is often a man's last attempt at holding on to some sense of control. But the beautiful irony is that in trying to maintain power, he actually gives it away. Because every second he spends thinking about whether or not to speak is a second he's still tethered to you. Every time he chooses silence, he's choosing to live in the prison of his own mind. And the more he does that, the more obsessed he becomes. There will be moments when his silence feels unbearable to you, when you wonder if it really does mean he's done, if he's moved on, if he's no longer affected. But I want you to remember that silence often hides the opposite of what it shows. People rarely go silent when they truly don't care. They go silent when they care too much and don't know how to handle it. His silence is not his freedom, it's his evidence. Evidence that you still live rent-free in his mind. Evidence that you've touched something in him too deep to walk away from cleanly. Evidence that no matter how still he appears on the outside, there's a storm raging underneath. So let him be silent. Let him wrestle with his own emotions. Let him carry the weight of everything unspoken. Because while he's busy hiding, you're busy shining. And in the end, that's what fuels the obsession even more. The fact that his silence doesn't break you, the fact that you continue to glow without his words, the fact that while he's stuck trying to mute the music, you're already dancing to a rhythm he can't ignore. And the more you lean into that energy, the more undeniable you become, because silence might cover his mouth, but it can't cover his heart. And a heart that's obsessed, no matter how hard it tries to hide, will always reveal itself in the end. And this is where it gets even more interesting, because silence doesn't just linger in the background of his life. It starts to shape it. Every choice he makes, every place he goes, every conversation he has is quietly colored by the presence of someone he's trying not to think about. He might convince himself that throwing himself into new connections will distract him, that dating someone else will erase the memory of what he felt. But silence has a way of sneaking into those moments too. Imagine him sitting across from someone new, nodding along, smiling at the right times. But then something slips, a phrase, a gesture, a look, and suddenly he's reminded of you. He tries to stay present, but silence fills the gap between what he has in front of him and what his heart still craves. This is why silence is deceptive. On the outside, it looks like absence, but on the inside, it's presence multiplied. It's the constant reminder that no matter how much he tries to suppress it, the imprint of you doesn't vanish. In fact, it often grows stronger the more he avoids it. He tells himself he can push you out of his mind, but that effort only creates tension, and tension always snaps back. He's caught in a loop where silence was supposed to bring him peace, but instead it's made you even louder in his thoughts. The longer he stays silent, the more he notices the ways life feels different without you, the little rituals, the inside jokes, the comfort of knowing someone truly understood him. Those things don't just disappear, they haunt him in the spaces where silence was meant to live. He finds himself looking for fragments of you in other people, hoping to replicate the feeling, only to realize that replicas never measure up to the original, and that gap, that void, only deepens his obsession. This is what people rarely understand about silence. It isn't neutral, it's active. It works like pressure, building inside him, pushing him toward acknowledgement even as he resists it. The more he suppresses, the more it surfaces, and so he becomes a prisoner of his own attempt at control. Silence was meant to protect him, but instead it traps him. And here's what makes you powerful in all of this. You don't need to fight the silence. You don't need to chase him out of it. You don't need to prove anything to him. The silence already does that work for you. It keeps your presence alive in his world without you lifting a finger. Every moment he stays quiet is another moment you take up space in his mind. Every time he resists reaching out, he's feeding the very obsession he's trying to hide. And when you understand this, you stop letting his quiet shake your confidence. You start to see that his silence says more about him than it ever does about you. Think of silence like a mirror. It reflects back to him everything he doesn't want to admit. It reflects the gap between what he feels and what he shows. It reflects the truth that his desire to appear strong is actually a confession of weakness. Because real strength is found in honesty, in courage, in vulnerability. Silence is not strength, it's hesitation, it's fear. And in that hesitation, in that fear is the proof of how much you say till mean. The longer he stays silent, the more his actions will betray him. You'll see it in the way he lingers near places you might be. You'll see it in the accidental messages, the late-night scrolling, the tiny slips that reveal where his attention really lies. Silence might hold back words, but it can't hold back energy. And energy always reveals the truth. People can't fake where their mind lives. They can't fake what their heart longs for. Silence is simply the pause before those truths leak through in unexpected ways. What's important is how you respond, or more accurately, how you don't respond. When you stay calm, when you stay focused on your own growth, when you show that his silence doesn't define your sense of worth, you flip the script. You shift the dynamic from him thinking silence gives him control to him realizing silence has made him powerless. Because while he's trapped in the cycle of obsessing quietly, you're out there thriving, moving forward, shining brighter, and nothing fuels obsession more than watching someone glow without needing you. It's almost poetic when you think about it. His silence was supposed to free him, but instead it binds him closer. His silence was supposed to erase you, but instead it engraves you deeper. His silence was supposed to weaken the connection, but instead it strengthens it because he's feeding it every day he refuses to confront it. That's the irony. He thinks silence is victory, but it's actually surrender. And while he's battling his own thoughts, you don't have to battle anything. You can let the silence do its work, knowing that it only highlights your impact. You can let him wrestle with his pride, knowing that pride is no match for passion. You can let him play the game of withholding, knowing that the more he holds back, the more obsessed he becomes. Silence is his strategy, but it's your advantage. Because here's the undeniable truth. Obsession doesn't vanish in silence. It festers, it deepens, it transforms from something he thought he could control into something that controls him. He may not say it, but he feels it. He may not show it, but it leaks out in ways he can't hide. He may not admit it, but every time he chooses silence, he's really choosing you. Because silence keeps you alive in his world far more than words ever could. So let him stay silent. Let him wrestle with it. Let him carry the weight of what he's not saying. Because silence doesn't erase connection, it amplifies it. And the louder it grows inside him, the more undeniable it becomes. And eventually, whether he likes it or not, that silence will break. It always does. And when it does, it won't be because you chased, it won't be because you begged, it will be because the obsession he tried to bury became too powerful to contain. And when that silence finally does crack, it won't happen in a grand cinematic way. It will slip out in small, almost unnoticeable moments that betray everything he's been trying to hide. It might be a late-night message he swore he'd never send, a subtle like on a picture you posted weeks ago, or a conversation where your name surfaces in places it doesn't belong. It could be the way he shows up somewhere unexpectedly, trying to play it off as coincidence, when deep down he knows it wasn't random at all. Silence, when it breaks, never breaks cleanly.